Right, good morning. It's Keep Cardiff Live, and it's our Gear Guru series. And we're very fortunate today to get a link into Luke Bradshaw's studio, where Luke is. So we say hi to Luke.
Hello, how's it
Hi
going?
there. Fine, thank you. Yeah, this is a really great insight into the world of the musician, I think, particularly with the lockdown going on. So you've been locked into your little studio there, I believe, and
Yeah, I've
doing
been
some stuff.
stuck in my padded cell. Yeah. Worst places to be.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It's a great setup you have there. I can see the control room, and
Yeah,
you've got a monitor room there. It's a brilliant little setup. I mean, the idea of the Gear Guru is we get asked questions by lots of people, so we try to put them forward to musicians. And firstly, what I'd like to do really is just if you could tell us a little bit about your history. I know you've played a lot in band sessions and live, so maybe you can tell us like a potted history of some of the stuff you've done.
yeah. So I do lots of live playing. Well, not at the moment, but lots of live playing.
Yeah.
Various tours, theatre tours, and back with bands and theatre shows. And obviously got the studio here, which I do lots of recording work in, commissioned work sometimes, or my own music and my own recording. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's about it.
And you also do a bit of your original stuff as well, don't you? You've recorded albums, your own albums at the studio as well.
Yeah, we got two albums out. Our band, if you like, is called Cool Hand. One album is a studio album, which was recorded here, and there's a live album out as well. So yeah, we are threatening to do a second one at some point. We are kind of midway through recording it. In all honesty, we just need to get together and finish the rest of it. But
which is difficult. It's difficult
time
at the moment, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
But you can have a listen to those on the usual places, I guess. Like iTunes and.
Yeah, they're both albums out on all the streaming sites and iTunes, Spotify, all of those places that we make the money from.
Okay. Well, I downloaded the albums; they're well worth listening to. So I'm just asking people to check that out as well. So you've been very kind to spare your time today, because I know you're very busy. You're also a teacher as well. You teach music lessons as well. And
yes, I teach guitar and. Teach on the contemporary music course in university. So all of my teaching now has been switched to online remote lessons from here. So I'm lucky that, I still have been able to work, or the majority of my work, I've been able to carry on with. So that's good.
How did you find the switch to the technology side of it, using Skype, I guess you use, or that sort of
to be honest, I've done Skype lessons for the last 5, 6 years anyway, so that kind of evolved naturally, where maybe people I taught had moved away, or gone to university and wanted to carry on with lessons, so they continued via Skype. So when this pandemic hit and the lockdown hit, it wasn't such a strange thing for me, because I'd already been doing maybe 5 or 6 hours of Skype lessons a week anyway. So to be honest, I actually prefer it, because obviously I'm in my own studio. I've got all my own equipment around me, all my files, PDFs of music or transcriptions or backing tracks, they're all on my computer, and I can just send them at the a touch of a button, and seconds later the student I'm teaching has got everything. So in many ways I kind of wish hope it carries on like this to a certain degree.
So you haven't noticed much of a change, really. It's interesting, because I think some people adapt to it and some don't so well. But you've obviously been doing it quite a while. So
I mean, I'm lucky that I had that I've got this setup anyway.
Sure.
If I didn't have this setup, obviously I've got young kids and family in the house running around making all sorts of noise. If I was trying to teach, in the living room or the corner of a room or something, it would be, impossible. So I'm lucky I can just come in here and I can say to the kids, I'm going to work now, and I shut the door and. I get left alone.
Treated as a proper job.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, we got lots of questions, from the people that have been asking me and sending stuff in. And I mean, one question we get asked a lot about on the Gear Guru is I know you play a lot on stage and you use in-ear monitoring. So
Yeah,
I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about the sort of advantages of in-ear monitoring, because for people who are not too aware, standard monitoring, of course, is speakers on the floor, which usually blast up at you at quite a volume. But the in-ear, of course, you can get your own sort of mix in your ears through headphones.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've been using in-ear monitoring on virtually every show and every tour I've done for as long as I can remember, the last 12, 15 years maybe. Yeah, you're right. The old style monitoring would have been wedges. We call them speakers facing at you. And obviously they're loud in your face. And every other member of the band has got those on stage as well. Now, the downside of that is the guy who's mixing out front, the out front sound, is fighting all the noise on stage, all the volume of these wedges. And generally speaking, as the tour goes on, those wedges tend to get louder and louder and louder as the weeks go on. So it's really difficult for the guy doing front of house sound to get a nice, balanced, clear sound because of the sheer volume of stuff on stage. So certainly when we go out with the Ultimate Classic Rock Show, it's called a silent stage. So there's no speakers on stage at all. The only things that are making sound on stage are the drums, which we've got like a drum plexi screen which screens those off. Now obviously you have to make the drums silent, but it does make a hell of a difference when you're stood in front of them. And more importantly, it stops the drums piling down the vocal mics or any open mics on stage. So again, it helps the front of house sound guy control the sound. So in terms of being able to do in-ear monitoring properly, you've got to find some way of getting your guitar sounds and keyboard sound and bass sounds to front of house, to the PA. So to do it properly, I mean, I've got you can see this rack here. This is my preamp.
You can just explain a little bit about that setup. That'd be brilliant.
Well, this is my amp really. It's a Mesa Boogie Triaxis, which is all valve, and it basically it's got every Mesa Boogie model from Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4 up to the rectifiers in. Fully programmable, is fully valve, and you can store up to like 100 odd different patches on it. Everything is changeable in real time. So that is effectively my amp. I do have a power amp and speakers, obviously, for gigs that aren't, silent stage, or you do need speakers on. But I keep that in a separate rack because anybody that's got a Mesa Boogie power amp knows how heavy they are.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say that, having had a Mark IV Mesa Boogie and early having a hernia carrying a thing around.
They weigh a ton,
It sounds like a good idea to have it just on a little rack like that. Brilliant.
Yeah, so this is the power amp I keep separate in a little 2U rack. And obviously I've got two 1x12 speaker cabs, which have got, from memory, the vintage Celestians in them, which I find quite warm and creamy. But really, I tend not to take these out because all the tours I'm doing are silent stage. So going back to the in-ear monitoring, this generates my guitar sound. This is just the effects, the TC effect unit, reverb, delay, chorus, that kind of thing. Now that signal gets sent, I don't know if you can see them, but on the top there, I've got two Palmer speaker simulators.
Okay.
The reason I've got two is because this setup runs in stereo, so you've got a left and right going out. They go into, each side goes into those Palmer speaker sims, and the idea is they simulate a real live speaker cab.
Right.
And they're really good. They do sound like you've got a 4x12 on stage with you, but without having to carry one or deal with the volume that they chuck out.
Sounds a great advantage,
Yeah. So, and then the sound then gets sent directly to front of house. Right. So the mixing desk at front of house. Now, where the in-ear monitors come into play then, normally the front of house engineer would send, or the monitor engineer would send that signal back to you, and you'd have them in wedges coming back at you on stage. Now, with in-ear monitors, you don't need the wedges. You put your in-ears, mine are here. I don't know if you can see these there. well, the ones I use are ACS. They're custom molded in ears.
They've been actually molded to your ear size, haven't they?
That's right, yeah. And they're triple drivers, so they got, top, middle, bottoms in them. Right. I mean, they're quite expensive. They were around the sort of £500-600 mark, but they sound incredible. And if every gig you're doing, you're reliant on that sound, it's worth spending a couple of quid and getting a really good set of in-ears.
There's a few advantages as well, a lot of advantages of it, but obviously you're going to get a good, clear mix on there as long as the mix is right. And of course, another thing that, because I'm a little bit older as well, is, tinnitus or tinnitus, as some people call it, from power monitors and drummers and that sort of thing. So I think a lot of music is moving towards using in-ear monitoring.
I mean, it's so much better. It's clearer. I mean, yes, you are relying on your sound engineer or your monitor engineer to send you a good mix of what you want back. Yeah. But a lot of times now you can get apps that connect to the front of house desk, so you can literally do your own mix on your phone.
Fantastic.
You want more kick drum or less guitar or more bass or whatever. You can do your own mix yourself a lot of the time. But I mean, the massive advantage is everything is crystal clear, and you play better because you can hear the detail. When everything's loud and noisy, nobody can really hear each other and really hear how accurate you're all playing. I mean, in ears, you're effectively in a studio. And the massive advantage is you can have them quiet. I can't remember the last time I did a gig and walked away with my ears ringing. It doesn't happen. I probably listen to my iPod louder than I would have my in-ear monitor mix. It's
exactly.
Yeah, I highly recommend them.
Yeah, I've used them as well, and I've taught a lot of people to use them, and I think it is the way to go for live music, and that control factor as well is brilliant. The fact that the technology is there now that you can actually do things on your iPhone, your iPad, that's brilliant.
It makes life so much easier, and it's if there are ever any issues, the front of house engineer can speak to you via microphone, and you're hearing that in your ears, which the crowd or the audience aren't hearing.
So that's why you laugh on stage, because he's obviously making some funny comments in you.
There are a couple of moments in the show where there's sneaky messages being sent to each other in ears, which do cause laughter sometimes.
Yeah, I did notice that when your last gig there was a bit of chuckling going on. I thought there's a bit of an in-joke going on here.
And which is great, because that's something that just we get. Nobody else gets to hear that. Brilliant. I'm sure nobody else would want to hear that anyway.
No, they wouldn't, would they? That's brilliant. So you mentioned a little bit about your Mesa Boogie amplifier there, which is obviously it's a fantastic amp and it's very versatile. Anybody who knows a little bit about Mesa Boogie, their reputation over the years is like phenomenal, really, and a lot of well-known artists have used them. So, I mean, can you just tell us a little bit more about that rack setup you've got there, as well as the amp?
Yeah, I mean, it's I've always, let me plug my guitar in. I've always used Mesa Boogie ever since I was old enough to afford to buy decent equipment myself. I think I originally had a Studio 22 combo, little Mesa Boogie 1x12 Studio 22 combo, which sounded great.
As well.
Yeah, I mean, they sounded great. The only thing is they weren't particularly versatile because you had one set of controls that were,
that's right.
So it was a bit of a compromise. Your clean channel and your distorted channel were
that's right.
So it wasn't ideal. And especially, when you start talking about doing classic rock shows and that kind of thing, where you're trying to emulate, 20, 25 different guitar players' sound throughout the night. Two channels ain't going to cut it. You just can't, if you want to do it properly and get your guitar sounds as close as possible. So this is great because it's got, like I said earlier, it's got the circuitry from all the Boogie range up to the rectifiers. Everything is programmable. It's all valve, so you still get that nice sustain valve sound. And you can go from like a clean. Let me put this on. Go from like a nice clean to more of a Well, I mean, if I run through my generic patches for you, I mean, this is just a generic sort of clean sound that I tend to use for rhythm stuff.
Great.
I mean, there's not much on that in terms of effects. So there's a bit of reverb on there, and there's a tiny bit of delay on there.
Right.
That's about it. My guitar signal, I don't know if you can see my pedal board from there, but I'll cut in maybe a bit of footage of the pedal board later. But
okay.
The guitar goes into a volume pedal. My pedal board is really basic. It's got the foot controller on for the rack, which is the main thing I use. But the guitar goes into a volume pedal and out to the volume pedal into an SP exotic compressor. That makes a huge difference to the sound, I think.
Right. Yeah.
It gives you that sustain and nice fat warm sound, and into a wah pedal, and that's pretty much it. I have got a boost pedal that is on the board. To be honest, I only ever use that as a bit of a problem solver when I mainly use my PRSs live, which are humbuckers.
Yeah.
But there is a switch on there that will activate the middle pickup and turn them into single coils. Now, obviously, when you do that, the output volume drops.
Right.
So to save me programming a whole load of other patches, when I'm using single coils on this, or if I use one of my Strats with single coils, I just pop the boost button on.
Yeah.
With a boost of about 6 dB, and that brings it back up to the same volume as the PRS. So it just saves me programming a load of other patches, really.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things I learned in my basic knowledge through programming my system and stuff is the compressor is really, really important, as you said. And also the boost. I mean, one of the tricks that I do is just use an EQ and just put it up a couple of dB. All in line, so you're not actually you're boosting all the frequencies, but just a slight bit to give you that extra boost, Yeah,
I do sometimes find as well, if you boost for guitar, if I'm recording, I tend to put a tiny little bump around the 3K mark for guitar. Yeah. Which is kind of the nice frequency the guitar sits in, that kind of pokes through a mix nicely.
Right.
Without having to push the overall volume and the faders up. So around that 3K mark just gives you a little lift, enough for the guitar to poke through the mix without it, swamping everything else. So.
Yeah, it's a good little tip to know.
Sorry, if I go back to the patches, sure. That was my sort of generic clean. I've got another clean patch which has got a bit more chorus on and reverb on, so it's a wetter patch, kind of.
Nice.
That's sort of warmer sound.
Really lovely sound, yeah.
The next patch I use is just kind of more of a pushed, clean, slightly overdriven sort of sound. Nothing too filthy, more of a sort of bluesy. That works really well on the single coil tap as well, so you've got that kind of...
Yeah, it's got a real nice bite to it, yeah.
Yeah. My next patch is more of a generic sort of overdriven, crunchy kind of sound.
Yeah.
Again, there's not much on that. A tiny bit of reverb, tiny bit of delay. My next overdriven patch then is a bit more 80s rock, so it's got a bit of chorus and delay on, that kind of... that kind of bigger
yeah,
80s rock.
Guess who there?
yeah. So they're kind of my generic rhythm patches, really. I don't really tend to... Those sort of 5 patches get me through most rhythm songs. Onto the solo patches again then. These are the patches that I use for the lead sounds. The first one again is quite a subtle sort of overdriven. Sort of bluesy. I kind of use that for some of the Gilmore-y type stuff in the show, that kind of...
Yeah, it's a great sound.
Not quite clean, but not distorted. loads of sustain on it. You know, the notes will keep ringing till the cows come in. There's so much sustain in it. It's and that's why the speaker simulators work so well, because to me that just sounds like I've got a cab there. You know?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's like they put a load on it, don't they? Rather than it being like a DI box, they put a load on as if you were actually going into a speaker.
Some of them come with a load, a dummy load.
That's right. Yeah.
Those don't, because I'm not actually, the power amp stage is not engaged. Right. You need the dummy load if your power amp and preamp are part of the same thing, because obviously if your power amp is running without sending signal to your speakers, it's going to blow because it's not offloading. That's why you need the dummy load. But I don't have that with this, because the preamp and the power amp are separate. So when I go out on tour with the rock show, I don't even take the power amp with me. I literally just take the top rack. So there's no need for a dummy load then.
So it's a really compact setup, really, if you're just looking at that top rack there, and makes it really versatile, because you have
to play so many different tones. Yes, 4U rack. So I've got, like I said, the tri-axis, the TC effects there. Yeah. This top one is my wireless system for my in-ears. So I got a pack which I plug my in-ear headphones into, which means I can wander around the stage without getting tangled up in guitar leads. Yeah. And this is just a graphic that I send. So the front of house engineer sends me my monitor mix, and I put it through this graphic first before it goes into my in-ear pack. Just, you know, obviously it won't change your mix. No. But if you find sometimes you want you mix a little bit brighter generally, or a little bit more bottom end or less bottom end, instead of me bugging the sound guy, I can
it's a good idea.
Literally tweak my faders there. It's kind of like a happy medium, and you can control the balance between your left and right as well. So my hearing is slightly down in my right ear from what you were saying, years of playing in bands. And it's because I always stand, you know, as to my left, or to the drummer's left, I tend to stand. So I'm catching snare drum all night in my ear. And I'm sure that's why my hearing in this, you know, my right ear is slightly down. So
I think that's what happened with me, because I always used to stand left of the drummer, and cymbal height as well, you know, so when you used to hit the cymbals, you used to be catching that right ear, and my right ear is less than my left ear as well.
Yeah, I think a snare drum hit is something crazy. You know, decibel reading is louder than a jet engine, obviously for a split second or millisecond, but it is crazy loud. So so it's good to be able to slightly adjust your left and right balance. So that's the rack. So I try and make it as compact and as small as possible, because, you know, if we got fly dates where we got to, you know, get everything on a plate, you know, generally speaking, we tour our own back line, not drums. They would be hired in if we were abroad, but I would take my own rack and my pedal board and my guitars. That would be what I take with me. So we're not having to fly big amps or hire in amps or anything like that when we get there. So I try and keep it as compact and as neat and small as possible, because I've got to carry it.
That's definitely something to think about. Definitely carry the gear around. But I mean, the compactness, I mean, it seems to be the technology now has moved forward that you can get great sounds. I mean, I think it was a very valid point you said there as well. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they're trying out, they try to have hundreds and hundreds of sounds on their effects boards and stuff. Well, really, you probably only need about 5 or 6 sounds and maybe a couple of effects buttons you can knock in and out, and you've pretty much covered most of the sounds that you want.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake a lot of guitar players make, is they just pile their sound in effects, whether that's because, you know, their initial guitar sound is lacking, so they're trying to compensate by, you know, piling effects on, or maybe because they think it sounds good. But you know, once you've got your core guitar sound good, you know, so your dry amp sound, most guitar players wouldn't want to kind of color it too much with effects anyway. It's you know, you pay all that money to get a really good amp sound, and then you pile a load of effects on it, and it kind of it could end up sounding like £100, cheap amp. So I do tend to use effects sparingly, but that's through choice. I mean, some tracks where, particularly in the rock show, you have to pile on the effects a little bit more to, if you're trying to copy a certain guitar player
style,
that's it. So I got a couple of other lead patches I can show you. This one is a slightly more overdriven solo patch, but more of a Gary Moore kind of sort of sound. This is a more processed, more of a processed 80s sort of. So that's got a bit more chorus and delay, ping pong delay, which I know you can't hear in stereo at the moment, but if you listen to this with headphones on, the delays will be bouncing from left to right and panning. And then I got a couple of specific patches I use then for specific songs, like in the set. So I got a brick in the wall sort of patch, that delay. Which I use for that song, and that's it. I don't use it for another track in the set. But it's that kind of U2, whatever it is, 380 milliseconds kind of delay sound that gives you that Gilmour, The Edge kind of delay sound. So that's pretty much it, really. It's pretty straightforward. I got the wah pedal that I can kick in if and when I need to on any of the patches. I do use a mouth box as well, which is on my, I don't know if you can see it, it's on my pedal board there. I always get questions about the mouth box. Loads of people always ask me about the mouth box. I haven't actually got the tube in at the moment, but it's basically a high-powered speaker in a metal box, and that sound, when you turn it on, your normal guitar sound cuts out, and your guitar goes into this high-powered speaker in the metal box, which goes up a tube into my mouth. And then just by changing the shape of your mouth, that kind of thing with the tube, the sound is in your mouth and you're changing the shape of your mouth and it's going back into a microphone. And it's kind of got that unique sort of talk box guitar sort of sound. Again, sort of, I only use that on one song in the set. We do
Joe Walsh.
Joe Walsh,
Peter Frampton.
Solo.
Peter Frampton
is another one,
But having used one of them, it does vibrate your teeth around a bit, doesn't it?
I mean, the old ones really were high-powered, and I think people did have problems with teeth and stuff. But I've got a relatively newer one, so they're nowhere near as high-powered as they used to be. So it's a bit more sensible when you when you say that. I wouldn't want to use it for the whole night.
No, not really. No, you might have some teeth problems. But
right.
There's a new one out on the market which I've got as well. I think it's TC Helicon, which works without doing the speaker process. It kind of simulates it. It's not quite the same. But I mean, if anyone is interested, I would check out that one as well. But there's a few good ones on the market. But it is like a unique effect. Bon Jovi, I think, is another one.
That's it. Haitian Divorce. Dan.
Which I believe he put on after the guitar track. He did.
I think so. I can't remember who recorded guitar on that, but they sent it back out into a talk box, and I think it was Walter Becker who actually did the talk box bits.
Sorry, we go off on a Steely Dan thing there.
That's good.
So, maybe just quickly tell us a little bit about your favourite guitars. Obviously, you've got the PRS there, which is a really versatile guitar for what you're doing.
This is my number one guitar. If you can see it, it's one of the older models. They don't make this particular style model anymore. This is the Swamp Ash Special PRS. It's the bolt-on neck version, which I prefer because I always played Strats, from day one. So to me it feels a lot like a Strat. The advantage of this, apart from it being a lovely guitar and the neck is great and it feels great, it's kind of like a Les Paul and a Strat in one guitar. I've always loved the sound of a Les Paul, but I don't like playing them. I find them quite uncomfortable and heavy and not particularly well balanced and cumbersome. So this is great because it's got the two humbuckers like a Les Paul with a three-way switch. In that position, it's the one humbucker on. Middle position is the two humbuckers on. That position is the neck on, exactly like a Les Paul. But then this middle pickup, I think it's a Seymour Duncan hot rails or vintage rails. When you pull the volume, the tone pot, and activate the coil tab, that brings into play that middle pickup. And it basically turns these into single coils, or effectively turns them into single coils, which gives you your Strat sound. So for me, it's kind of like two guitars in one, and it feels great. It plays great. So this has been my number one sort of main guitar for quite a long time. I've got another one exactly the same, which I don't know if you can see hanging on the wall. Yeah, I can see that. There. Yeah. Exactly the same finish. That's a fluke. And again, people always ask me, why have you got two guitars exactly the same? For the simple reason that if I'm playing mid-show and I snap a string or something goes wrong with this, I want to be able to grab another guitar that's exactly the same, with the same pickups, same configuration, that I can plug into, and all my patches sound the same.
All the same, yeah.
So exactly. You can just carry on. Yeah, because there's nothing worse than picking a spare guitar up, that sounds completely different than the one you've been using. So all the, all your patches and everything that you've programmed and got sounded just right sound completely different because it's a different guitar.
There's a practical reason to what you're doing. Yeah, definitely.
That's it. Yeah. And these are, these are kind of like rocking or shit to get hold of, this particular model. Yeah. And I picked this one up. I found this one on eBay however many years ago. And when it kind of became my number one guitar, I thought, right, I need to get another one as a spare. Yeah. And like maybe a year or so later, that one popped up on eBay, and it was exactly the same color. So I was like, right, you got to get it. And so, but, they're exactly the same. The necks feel slightly different. I can tell the difference, but if other guitar players pick them both up, they struggle to tell the difference. I can. I mean, visually I can tell the difference because the fretboard on this has got a bit more wear on it, because this is the one I always sort of gravitate to. But having said that, when I pick that one up first and I play that one, I'm quite as happy to play that one as well. But this one is number one. I call them the twins. So this one is number one, that's number two. So they're my main guitars. I have got some other guitars on the rack there. I don't know if you can see. Let me plop that one back a bit. So this is another PRS I've got, which is an older. I forget what model this is. This used to be my number one working guitar. As you can see, it's battered and the neck is chunks out of it and stuff. I used this guitar for loads and loads of tours, and it's great. Again, it feels like a Strat. It feels very similar to the Swamp Ash. It's got a humbucker and two single coils in. This has kind of been my Frankenstein guitar for a long time, because I've changed the pickups and messed around with it. It did have, when I bought it, it did have EMGs in it, which I went through a phase of using EMGs, like everybody else did. Yeah, great. Which they are great pickups, but they're noiseless, which is the benefit of them. But they do sound a bit clinical, a bit sort of sterile.
A bit too sterile, yeah.
Yeah, so I've gone back to more passive pickups. I think the pickups in this at the moment are Seymour Duncan's, the Dave Gilmour SSL 5, I think it is, in the neck. I think Gilmour uses that in the bridge, but I use it in the neck.
Right.
Same in the middle, and whatever model Seymour Duncan humbucker that is in the bridge. Again, it's got a coil tap switch on it, but it sounds more Stratty this than the other PRSs. So I use it for that sort of sound. What else have I got here? This Strat. I love this Strat. And again, this is a parts caster. I put this together myself. Yeah. I had the body lying around for years, I bought the body because I loved the colour. I think it was a limited edition colour they did, Fender did. But for whatever reason, I think I just seen the body advertised for sale. And then a couple of years later, an American neck came up, on eBay. So they're right. I'll buy the neck. The neck came, and I found the neck quite chunky. It wasn't quite what I was looking for. So I ended up using that neck on a different guitar, which I'll show you in a second. And then I ordered a different American USA neck, which is this one, and it feels great. It feels lovely.
Nice looking Strat.
Yeah, I put it together. I blocked the trem up on this one, just because I play different when I haven't got a trem arm to mess around with. So I thought, right, I'll block the trem up. These, I think, are the what's the Stevie Ray Vaughan pickups, like the Texas Special pickups.
Texas Specials,
Fender Texas Specials. So they're a bit overwound pickups, basically. So they're a bit hotter than the standard, sort of American Strat pickups. Apart from that, it's a Strat, but it sounds great. I love the feel of it. I use this quite a lot, to be honest. Not so much for live, but just for recording and just for general sort of playing.
Yeah.
So that's that one. So the neck that I was talking about earlier that I ordered for that originally is this neck.
Right.
So again, this is another guitar I sort of put together myself. Bought the bits, standard Sunburst body. I think they were the Van Zandt pickups.
Yeah, I remember those. Back in the 90s, I think.
I don't know if they were related to Stevie Van Zandt.
No, I'm not sure, but
that
I think
family. I'm not sure, to be honest.
They were Texas, I think, weren't they? They were American pickup, from what I remember.
Yeah, again, they're kind of hotter, slightly overwound, hotter pickups than your standard sort of US pickups. But this guitar, the reason I used the neck on this guitar is because I set this guitar up in open tuning for slide. So for me, the neck thickness isn't so critical on this because I'm playing slide on it. I think at the moment it's set up in open E. I used this in the show for the Joe Walsh track, Rocky Mountain Way, because that's in open E and it does all the slide bits. So that's that one. Only a couple more. I've hidden the rest of them just in case my wife sees this video. A beat up old telly.
Nice.
Again, this was an eBay special. I don't know. I've had this a couple of years. It says Fender on the top. I have no idea what year it is or anything like that. To be honest, I'm not. I'm not into I'm not really a guitar collector, so I'm not really into all the vintage. I'm not up on all the vintage stuff. But I just wanted a telly. It came up nice and cheap on eBay. I like the fact that it looks like it's had a hard life. Yeah, like me. And again, this is permanently set up for slide. I think it's in open G tuning, this one. So again, I don't use it very often. I tend to use it just for some recording or if I need another guitar set up in a different tuning. That's one of the reasons we have to take so many guitars out on the road with the rock shows, because I think we have something like 14, 15 guitars on stage, which is, people look at it and go, why you got that many guitars? But if you think, your main guitar, well, there's myself and the other guitar player, Andy, play guitar. The singer also plays guitar, acoustic, so he plays acoustic and 12 string. So obviously myself and Andy have got our main guitars and the spares. Then we've got like various other acoustics that we use on certain tracks. And then you've got, some songs that are in open tuning that you need a guitar ready tuned in that tuning for. You can't be standing there retuning your guitar in between songs. So it's surprising how the amount of guitars, the number of guitars mount up on stage.
Yeah, because you've got so many different songs, so many different tunings to cover.
That's it, and we, it would be lovely if we could have every guitar that the actual guitar player used on stage, so all the SGs, the double necks, the Les Pauls, but I think I'd get divorced. My other guitar is the old Resonator.
Oh, lovely.
Again, this is set up in open tuning. I mean, I can play it obviously normally, but I tend to use this one for slide. Again, I don't tend to use this live. It's great for recording though, because it's a different, it's quite a honky, different sound than a regular acoustic. So that's that one. The other one is my acoustic, which is up on the wall there. I don't think you see that one.
Okay.
Which I've had this one for donkey's years, and this is just a Takamine.
Yeah.
Yeah, EN, whatever it is, EN40C.
So it's like one of the original ones, a Japanese.
Yeah, it's one of the older ones. You know, I mean, it was quite expensive when I bought it, so it's it's one of the better ones, if you like. Again, I mean, it's an electroacoustic. For recording, I tend to chuck a mic on it and plug it in and get a blend of both. Yeah. For live, it's great to just plug it in and away to go kind of thing. So that's my guitars.
I think that's
or the ones that I'm willing to admit about.
I think it's a great selection, though. I mean, I think what talking to you is what it's about is the practicality of playing live. You've got to. You've got to be compact. You've got to get the sounds right. You've got to have the versatility, and your gear sort of shows that. It's a fantastic setup.
I mean, I'm not. In all honesty, I'm not a guitar collector. I very rarely go into guitar shops, to be honest with you. To be honest, I can't think of anything worse. The reason I've got these guitars is because they give me the sounds that I need, sure, either live or for recording. More for recording a lot of the time. Because you can pick up a Strat and it instantly sounds like a Strat instead of trying to get a PRS to sound just like a Strat. If I've got one there, I can pick it up and plug it in and it does what it says. Yeah. So I'm not into collecting guitars. I haven't got enough money to collect guitars.
No. I think one of the things that people have to think of as well with guitars. I mean, you've got to maintain them as well. You put sets of strings on them. It's an expensive business if you've got a lot of guitars to do that.
It is, yeah. And over the years, I've kind of learned or taught myself to be a bit of a guitar tech. Because when you're away on tour and something inevitably breaks down on your guitar or the volume pot goes, when it's an hour before the show. We're lucky with the rock show. We have got a guitar technician with us because we've got so many guitars. So Tony's great. He tunes our guitars for us, restrings them. If there's a problem, he sorts it out. But on lots of tours, you haven't got a guitar tech or a backline tech. So an hour before the show, if your guitar breaks down, you need to start ripping the guts out of it and resoldering a new volume pot on or whatever. So unless there's something seriously or majorly goes wrong, I can sort pretty much most things out myself, setups and restringing and tuning and that kind of stuff. So touch wood.
Well, I think it's good to learn these sort of things. I mean, another question we get asked as well is strings. I mean, do you stick to the same brand and size strings on the?
I do, yeah. I always use Early Ball 10 to 46s. The yellow pack. I always used, as a kid, 9 to 42s, the pink, the Ernie Ball pink pack. All my Strats, probably up to 15 years ago, maybe. I always used 9 to 42s on everything. And for whatever reason, I can't remember. I thought, I'll give 10. I had a pack of 10s lying around. I thought, right, I'll put it on whichever guitar it was at the time. And the more I played it, the more I realised, well, the thicker the string is, the better it sounds, and the more stable the tuning is. Once you get past the initial, that's a bit harder to bend, gradually I ended up switching all my guitars to 10s. So everything has got 10s on, apart from the Telly and the Strat are set up for slide, which has got heavier strings on because there's open tuning. So whatever they are, super heavy gauge, thick, but you're not bending those, you're playing slides.
Slide,
yeah. I can't remember what's on the acoustic, Martin light gauge or something. I don't know.
It's a personal choice thing, but we do get asked about types of strings, and I think Ernie Ball comes out a lot. The Dario is another good make, but there's lots of good makes around there. But it's the gauges, as you say, can make a difference. The thickness of the string to difference to the tone, definitely.
Yeah, I do find as well with the 10s, I very rarely break strings. Mind you say that on the main guitars, I change my strings before every show. Every gig, from experience, I know one show, one set of strings will get me through one show. If I attempt a second show on the same set of strings, I will snap a string.
Yeah. Well, I think we've virtually covered everything now, Luke. It's been
good.
Yeah, it's been really, really good talking to you, and thanks for inviting us to the studio. We just got a couple of silly questions, which we always get asked at the end.
Fire away.
Silly. Well, I mean, obviously you've been on the road a little bit. So, what's your favourite meal on the road?
Oh, meal. See, it's got to be curry or steak, isn't it? after a show, but curry or steak or a couple of beers is.
Okay, now you've said curry, I've got to ask, is that going to be a hot curry or is it going to be a mild curry?
Jalfrezi is normally chicken jalfrezi is normally my dish of choice. You never quite know what you're going to get with a jalfrezi, though. Sometimes they leave the peppers whole, sometimes they chop them up and disguise them, so it's a bit of a lottery.
Yeah, but it's the king of guitarist curries, I think, the jalfrezi.
Yeah, it can't beat the jalfrezi.
And the other one I got asked was your favourite chocolate bar.
Oh, I got asked this in an interview before. Whisper. Cadbury's Whisper.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that old joke about Whisper melting in your pocket, isn't it, or whatever? Yeah, but I think there was another question I was going to ask, another silly question I was going to ask, but it's gone completely on my head at the moment. But we do genuinely get asked these by people, and I think they are interested to your lifestyle. Oh, I think, the other thing was if you're going to watch any films or music films, so what would be your favorite music spoof film?
Like comedy spoof film, you mean? Well, it's got to be Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap, I think that comes out as quite high on most people's. And I think the final one, if you just had to take one album, which is like the most difficult question ever, and it can be a compilation album,
that's cheeky,
or it could be a thick album, so you can use it as an oar in a boat or something like that, or a sun hat or something. But if you just had to take one album with you, what would it be?
Oh, that's so tough. Because
it's a real tough one.
I've got stock albums, favorite albums, bands that I gravitate to depending on what mood I'm in.
Is there one that you keep coming back to over all the years?
There's so many. Steely Dan, Pink Floyd, Toto. Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd.
There we go.
If I had to pick one under pressure, Wish You Were Here, because it still sounds fresh to me when I put that on, and it sounds like a cliche, but as soon as that first synth chord starts to shine on, I'm just transported somewhere else, and I stay in that somewhere else for the duration of the album. I tend to, because it's quite a short album, short albums are short then. When it gets to the end, I normally listen to it again. So that would be my album of choice.
Yeah, it's a good answer. It's a real tough question, but I think if you choose that one album that takes you somewhere else or whatever, then that is a special album.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Luke. It's been fantastic talking to you, and really appreciate you sparing the time. I know you're a busy man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I mean, if people want to check out what Luke does, there's a tuition page, his Facebook page, his website, all the details we'll put up online anyway. And Luke is also on our tuition page as well. So if you would like a lesson with Luke, you can always get in touch with him, and he does, as he's mentioned before, Skype lessons, and it's well worth spending a bit of time with Luke. He's a very knowledgeable player and a lot of experience. So thank you once again, Luke, for your time today. It's been really enjoyable. Cheers, mate.
Take care. See you soon.
Cheers.